Most people know Sam Altman as the face of OpenAI and ChatGPT, but what you might not know is that he's betting huge money on brain health, specifically a company called Biosciences. Their mission is to add 10 healthy years to human life, and one of their boldest ideas is something I find fascinating as a neuroscientist, because it is replacing the brain's immune cells, microglia, to fight aging. So today I decided to unpack what is the actual problem they want to tackle, their solution, the stakes, and finally my take on it. So let's go. Hi there, I'm Yvette, a neuroscientist and an author of several neuroscience studies. And important for today, many of which are about microglia in brain aging and disease. On this channel, I break down how the brain works, decode its mysteries, and explore the deeper questions that they raise about our future. So, if this sounds right up your alley, well, you know what to do. So, what are microglia? Think of them as the immune system in the brain, and they have different jobs. They can act as janitors to clean up dead neurons and toxic proteins, as gardeners to prune synapses and maintain your neural networks, and as first responders to rush to contain infections and injuries. But here's the catch. With age and disease, microglia stop acting like protectors and start behaving like corrupted code. Instead of cleaning, they contribute to the trash. Instead of maintaining the network, they remove all that they encounter. And finally, instead of assisting, they end up releasing further inflammatory signals, contributing to further injury. In Alzheimer's disease, many microglia are stuck in this broken inflammatory state, actively driving the disease forward. And we know this isn't just a side effect. Some of the biggest genetic risk factors for Alzheimer's, like mutations in the famous gene TRIM2, are microglia genes. This tells us that these cells are central in brain aging. And in my own research, I've seen how a dysfunctional microglia can destabilize an otherwise healthy set of neurons. So when the support system fails, the whole circuit starts to dysfunction. So, Biosciences' idea is radical but simple. If the code is corrupted, reboot the system. Here's how they plan to reboot in 3 simple steps. So, in the first step, they will wipe the corrupted code. They start by depleting the old dysfunctional microglia. This is done with drugs that block a receptor called CSF1R, which microglia need to survive. In animal studies, more than 90% of microglia vanish within days. And this I can attest to it, as I have used one of these drugs in my studies, and pretty much there were no microglia present. It's like wiping a hard drive. One would think it is risky, because for a short time your brain is unprotected, but initial animal studies have done this for over 2 months, and there were no adverse effects observed, which, to be honest, I find astonishing. But it's true. So this method clears the space for something new. So then there's the second step, which is installing a fresh operating system. So next comes the reboot. Bioscience wants to generate youthful microglia from your own cells. The tool here is iPSC technology, which stands for Induced Pluripotent Stem Cells. Imagine rewinding one of your skin cells back to a youthful state, and then nudging it to become a fresh microglial precursor. This erases decades of cellular aging. And here's where AI comes in. Bioscience, with Altman's backing, is using machine learning to optimize this process, finding the best recipes of proteins and conditions to make reprogramming more efficient and safer. Instead of the usual trial and error in a dish, AI accelerates discovery, designing reprogramming factors that could make the process faster, more consistent, and more personalized. This has been in the thoughts of many, ever since John Gurdon and Shinya Yamanaka won the Nobel Prize for reprogramming cells. And in fact, in the field of neuroscience, there is emerging literature where the rejuvenation factors are introduced to reverse aging effects. Well, it's cool stuff. And I really wonder where this company is going to take it. And then there is step 3, which is reintegrating in the network. Finally, the fresh microglia are introduced back into the brain, and the hope is that they'll integrate seamlessly and reset the immune balance, like installing a fresh operating system after a crash. In most studies, the new microglia look and act more youthful. Even more striking, aged mice perform better on memory tasks after this reboot. So what does this mean for us? So the promise is that resetting microglia could change how we treat Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS, and even brain injuries. It doesn't just target one protein, it resets the whole immune ecosystem of the brain. And actually, we have plenty of evidence that this could indeed work. For example, in mice, memory improves after microglia replacement. And in humans with rare diseases such as ALSP, bone marrow transplants that lead to the replacement of microglia have slowed disease progression. It is basically 2 different diseases mentioned here, however, it's the same proof of principle. But here's the other side. Even if the reboot works, the existing environment, like plaques, inflammation, and blood vessel health, could corrupt the new microglia all over again. Let's put it this way. If you are prone to clicking on the link in a suspect email, it is useless to have formatted your computer a week ago, right? And of course, cost and long-term safety remain a major hurdle, because whatever can be reprogrammed has also the potential to start a cancer. Because after all, microglia don't live in isolation. If the brain environment is still toxic, even fresh microglia may eventually go bad. So the reboot only works if the rest of the system is stable too. And like with anything in the human body, often to address a disease, one has to adopt a multifaceted approach to target the different aspects that are causing the disease. As a neuroscientist in the microglia field, here's my take. There's definitely plenty of data supporting this concept, and I'm curious to see what Sam Altman's backing together with the current AI powerhouse can accomplish. One thing I noticed while researching for this video is that most published research comes from academia. While I found papers from researchers who later joined this company, I couldn't find a single peer-reviewed paper from Biosciences. And this isn't necessarily a red flag. Companies seeking patents often publish their data beforehand without risking their intellectual property rights. Still, worth mentioning for completeness sake. And just to be clear, I'm not affiliated with the company and haven't received any type of compensation for making this video. Anyway, microglia are genuinely exciting in neuroscience because they were overlooked for so long. Neuroscience was historically very neuron focused, treating other cells merely as support staff. Now, microglia have moved to center stage. In fact, many neuroscientists of my generation are dedicating their entire careers exclusively to these cells, which I find fantastic. However, the immune system is a delicate one, as both overactivity and underactivity can be problematic. And this microglia targeting approach isn't entirely novel. Over the past 5 to 10 years, several companies have developed drugs targeting CSF1R specifically to regulate microglia. Some of these treatments have undergone clinical trials already. So yeah, let's see if this company will bring forward the promise that AI will revolutionize healthcare. And yeah, I am very curious. And if after all this you would like to read the papers yourself, I have made a link with all the sources in the description below. If you would like to read these papers, however you are intimidated by medical papers, well, actually I have put together a simple system that shows you how you can read a paper and assess it critically in under 30 minutes. So the link is in the description down below, and actually I'm also updating it along the way based on your suggestions. So yeah, feel free. And yeah, if you have made it this far, I just have one question for you. And I really would like to know, what are your thoughts in using AI in treating disease?